Welcome to the Wisp Mama Bear Podcast, episode 24. I'm your host, Sarah Yacoub. Today's topic, closing the Dark Store Loophole. Well, it's once again time to pay our property taxes, which is a painful reminder that Wisconsin still has not closed the Dark Store Loophole. In fact, our courts have made it worse, giving Wisconsin a Dark Store and a Walgreens loophole. What is the Dark Store Loophole? The Dark Store Loophole is a creative interpretation of state law known as, quote, Dark Store theory. It is a phenomenon occurring across the country, as while state laws vary from state to state, the heart of the issue is the same anywhere. It is a question of what standards should be used by a state and local authority in determining the value of commercial properties. Large corporations with a legal budget to bury local municipalities in legislation and or bully their way to not paying their fair share figured out that, quote, the Dark Store theory is a cow they can milk and keep milking over and over and over again. We as homeowners pay taxes based on the determination of a local tax assessor of the value of our property. In Wisconsin, state law, section 70.32, directs assessors to the Wisconsin Property Assessment Manual for guidance in assessing the value of property, which includes commercial property. Property is appraised based on its highest and best use. As stated in the manual, that which is considered to be, quote, the highest and best use of a property can change over time. Traditionally, big box stores are assessed at their highest and best use while in operation at the time of the assessment, taking into account commercial business in and around the area. Proponents of the Dark Store Loophole would say, oh, no. Ignore the value of commercial property as it was intended to and is actually producing. Instead, let's pretend the store is empty, compare it to other vacant commercial properties, and let's assess us there. Doesn't seem right or fair. Don't worry, it's not just you. It's not right or fair. Proponents of the Dark Store Loophole also capitalize off of the part of the manual that instructs assessors to consider that which can be obtained for the property at private sale. In the case of big box stores, the argument is that because they build these stores for specific purposes specific to a given business, the value of the property is actually substantially less. For an example closer to home, say you as a homeowner turn your living room into a mini ice skating rink. Whoever purchases your home will have to spend the money to revert that ice skating rink back into a living room, and you can expect to sell your home at a loss, as chances are you're not going to find somebody who's looking for an itty-bitty ice skating rink in the living room. Companies like Menards are arguing that because they will sell their property at a loss, their tax assessment should be based on what an empty building is worth and not as a function of the value of an active and robust business currently in operation. These businesses want us to close our eyes and ignore the highly profitable value of their commercial property when business is strong. Simply put, they are hoarding wealth and don't want to pay their fair share. Worse, they're perfectly content with the fallout, which is individual homeowners and small businesses picking up the slack. In other words, this is corporate welfare off of the backs of the middle class and small business owners, to the detriment of our local economy. In 2017, the city of Wauwatosa spent over $700,000 in litigation costs for an estimated loss of commercial value of $218,157,390. Even where municipalities win, the cost of litigation is not sustainable. As a result, taxpayers across the state are paying out big businesses huge settlements over disputes on the value of commercial real estate. A few things make this particularly offensive. For one, businesses that exploit this creative legal theory are bullies, and it is we, the taxpayers, who are being bullied. Second, many of these big box stores are built with self-imposed deed restrictions that prohibit competition, which means we don't often see freestanding retail businesses bought and sold on the free market for use as freestanding retail buildings. So when big businesses are complaining about their inability to sell their commercial property, they're very much an active and willful participant in that problem. Is that the end of exploitative games by big business Goliath in the context of David municipalities or taxpayers? Nope. Big businesses will build new commercial property through a contract with a third party, and then operate their stores under long-term leases that require the businesses, not the property owners, to pay the property taxes. Cue the Walgreens loophole. The Walgreens loophole is based on the 2008 Wisconsin Supreme Court decision Walgreens v. City of Madison. Walgreens did not want to pay property taxes based on the actual rent paid as a way to value the real estate. Instead, they wanted to pay based on what the landlord could get if the business moved out and a different retailer moved in. As a result, big businesses that exploit this loophole typically get assessed at less than half of their sale price for or the value of the commercial property. If this sounds stupid and nonsensical, it is. If it sounds like special rules for profitable corporations, those least in need of a break, it is. There is bipartisan support in the Wisconsin legislature to close the Dark Store and Walgreens loopholes. So what's the problem? Well, gluttonous self-serving fat cats like Shannon Zimmerman stand with corporate interests and not those of working families. Shannon stands with Robin Vos, Speaker of the Assembly, who has absolutely no interest in closing either loophole. This past election cycle, Shannon Zimmerman and his dark money special interest backers spent close to $1 million lying about me personally, professionally, and politically. Why? Because I unapologetically support closing these loopholes. I join the honest representatives on both sides of the aisle who are actually fighting hard for working families. And I was running against someone who is a rubber stamp for entities like the WMC, the Wisconsin Realtors Association, and the Koch brother group Americans for Prosperity. Side note, these groups hide their gluttonous, evil, exploitative deeds behind names that sound good, and sadly it works. Well, I'm an American. I believe in prosperity. Wow, this group must be good. They must care about me. I should listen to them. Not so much. This past election cycle, these dark money groups really didn't want to lose their rubber stamp in the legislature because, people like Betsy DeVos need yet another yacht off of the backs of working families. As long as politicians like Vos and Zimmerman have rigged maps to protect them, as long as our legislative districts are gerrymandered to allow politicians to pick their voters, they don't actually have to legislate for working families. As they've demonstrated over and over and over again, all it takes is lying come election time and claiming to stand with working families while having an R next to their name on the ballot, and they enjoy the roughly 60-40 win. Where it looks like they may lose, they just spend a little bit more money and bring out the big guns, call their opponent a socialist, denigrate them personally, find people in the community willing to spread their ugly lies, and call it a day. In case anyone is wondering about the importance of fair maps and ending gerrymandering, it means corrupt politicians stop getting away with raking working families over the coals in order to placate their dark money donors. It means politicians have to do more than have the right partisan affiliation next to their name on the ballot. It means accountability for things like Foxconn and not closing these loopholes that hurt working families and local economies. In 2018, the League of Wisconsin Municipalities took a look at the numbers on the Dark Store loophole. They found that homeowners pay $68 out of every $100 in property taxes collected by local government in Wisconsin. Taxes collected by local government pay for things like police, fire, and roads. The LWM compared that to Minnesota, where homeowners only shoulder 50% of that which is collected by local government. Insult to injury, the big box stores who are not paying their fair share, despite robust business and record profits, typically require more time from local law enforcement given theft and commercial burglaries, certainly more than any given homeowner. In other words, big box retailers like Target, Menards, and Home Depot frequently use the services of local government, local law enforcement, more so than your average homeowner, and they aren't paying for it. Again, this is a form of corporate welfare off of the back of local homeowners and small businesses. Among the false narrative talking points we hear in defense of not closing the Dark Store loophole is that if we close these loopholes, if we make big businesses play fair, they will simply go away and take their services and jobs with them. Wrong. Businesses like Target love our business. They're not going anywhere. Furthermore, take a look at states around the country who have put an end to this nonsense, and what do you know? The businesses stayed. Another fear-mongering talking point is that these corporations will just pass the cost down to the consumer. Again, that's not actually how things play out. States who go to bat for their local economies, working families, homeowners, and small businesses aren't looking at substantially different pricing for goods. I suspect they'd love to pass the costs on to their consumer, but the competition won't allow for it. They raise their prices and folks will just go elsewhere to obtain their goods. Will Shannon Zimmerman or Robin Vos tell you that they won't close the Dark Store or Walgreens loopholes because corporate welfare for their biggest donors off of the backs of working families is cool? Of course not. They'll smile and lie straight to your face. They'll tell you one of a handful of false narrative talking points that are designed to placate those whom they expect will ask no further questions, not dig deeper, and who want to like them and believe they're telling the truth. It's a response strategy that continues to work for them. Identity politics strikes again. Unless and until we as voters are willing to stand up and say enough, their corruption will continue. Right now, they get to have their cake and eat it too. After all, without fair maps, and with all the people who proudly proclaim, quote, "I only vote Republican," who is going to stop them? Episode 25 tomorrow. See you there.